Mm,
Good morning. Welcome to everyone who's joining. We've been asked to wait just a few minutes because we know there are more students coming from that main session. So thanks for your patience. We'll start very soon. What do you think, Professor Carney? Should we wait one more minute and then start?
yeah, let's see if we get a few more people.
Okay. All right, everybody. Good morning and welcome to our session on the School of Humanities. My name is Dr. Jeffrey Johnson, and presenting with me is Professor Carney. Professor Carney is in the history department. I'm in the English department.
Hello.
Hello and good morning. So let's see. We're going to spend the next little while walking you through our School of Humanities here at IVC, and we'll talk about some of the opportunities in terms of classes, clubs, and activities that are available here. And we will also talk about more broadly why the humanities and liberal arts should be of interest to you, whether it's part of your traditionally thought of as part of the career you're aiming at or not. We're going to try to suggest why the humanities are far more important than people in the media might say. So here's our first slide. By the way, please feel free at any time, if you have questions for us, to use the chat feature, the chat, or if you wish, just unmute yourself and get our attention. Really, we do have these prepared slides, but really the point of this session is to welcome you to IVC and to share information that's valuable to you. So if you have specific questions for us about anything, please let us know. We're here to help. Okay, we will start with our slides, though.
I'll be monitoring.
Lovely. Thank you, Professor Carney.
I'll be monitoring the chat.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, so uh, as you know, we've been in a pandemic for more than a year now. And according to this article from last year, COVID-19 is turning the spotlight on questions concerning society, nature, and the human experience. To help students enhance their problem solving and critical thinking skills, we must, as a society, promote fluency in the humanities as an integral competency in a technology-laden future. As artificial intelligence ushered in to augment the limitations of our species, it is the arts and humanities that will show the way for humans to outshine machines. I doubt you thought that we would lead off with something about artificial intelligence, but there you go. We'll say more about this as we go through our presentation. But one of our big thesis statements to you is that a lot of traditional career paths are actually going to become obsolete in the future because of technology, advances in technology and artificial intelligence. And one way to sort of bulletproof yourself and your resume against being made redundant by artificial intelligence is to develop your critical thinking skills and other cultural competencies that, that the humanities can offer. So what are the humanities? A humanities education provides a deep knowledge of history, language, literature, philosophy, and the visual arts, and an understanding of the contributions of influential thinkers, writers, and artists from many cultures. The humanities prepares students to be global citizens equipped with the tools of analysis, expression, and cultural understanding required for leadership in today's world. Humanities students not only master a body of knowledge, they also develop a set of portable skills needed for a lifetime. And those skills are the ability to think critically, read deeply, and communicate effectively. Read here does not just mean, of course it means reading, with your eyeballs on a book or on a screen, but it also means more broadly just to interpret a text. So that would mean films, TV, political advertisements, reading in that sense, interpretation, and then communicating effectively. What we want to put forth to you is that idea of that portable set of skills that even if you go down a career path in the STEM fields, these skills will be valuable to you. The only thing, when I told my parents I was going to be an English major, they were mortified. They thought, what are you ever going to do with that? And at the time, really the only thing you could do, people thought, was teach. Now that happens to be where I ended up, but there's so many more things you can do with these skills. If you know how to take in ideas, synthesize them, and communicate them effectively to other people and think critically about them, you will be a very valuable person in the marketplace. To remain competitive in the future job market, Mark Cuban, who you probably know, he's the He's the owner of the Dallas Mavericks. He's on that show, Shark Tank. He says that employees will need one critical skill, and that's the ability to think creatively, i.e. what artificial intelligence will not be able to do for a while, for quite a while. Mark Cuban says, I personally think there's going to be a greater demand in 10 years for liberal arts majors than for people in programming. Not to put down programming, but because if you want to be a programmer, we want to support you in that goal. It's that we want you to be a programmer with the additional skills of critical and creative thinking that the humanities can offer. Also, why humanities? Well, liberal arts degrees are often seen as a surefire route to a job as a barista. That's certainly what my parents thought. But the funny thing is that, according to Michael Litt, the CEO of Vidyard, a tech firm, he says, I'm still hiring more humanities majors than STEM grads, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Victoria, I see your question in the chat there about the best classes to take. If you don't mind, we have a set of slides later about that. If you give us a moment, we'll get there. Please keep the questions coming if you have them. And it's absolutely not a silly question, and thank you for asking it. No, Victoria, don't say sorry. I'm very glad you asked. I want to encourage everybody to ask as many questions as you like. But we do have a slide on that, so give us a moment to get to that one, please. And this, Victoria, this is the first part of the answer to your question. And the next several slides are essentially a longer version of that answer. By the way, a few new people coming in, welcome. We're just getting started with our presentation, and we're talking about why you should consider taking some humanities courses here at IVC and making the humanities part of your career in your life. So at IVC, this is a list of all of the different subdivisions, if you will, of the humanities. We've got English writing. That's I'll talk more about that because that's my department. And I'll come to that in more detail in a moment, but everybody has to take at least writing 1. I shouldn't say everybody, but everybody with the goal of earning a degree or transferring has to take at least writing 1. If you're coming here to take a single class, then you wouldn't need to take that, I suppose. But if your goal is to earn a degree or certificate, then you do need to take writing 1. And if you're transferring to a UC, University of California, then you'll need to take writing 2 as well. I'll say more about that later. We have English literature courses, history. Professor Carney will talk about that, and he'll also talk about the philosophy department, gender studies, and then this is a little confusing. We have our School of Humanities, and then within that, we have the Department of Humanities, and then within that, we have housed film studies, media studies, and religious studies. I realize that could be a little confusing, but if you just imagine like a concentric ring Venn diagram, we have languages, Spanish, French, Chinese, Japanese, ASL, film and media studies, which is relatively new, and then ethnic studies. And we just have a brand new professor starting this fall who's heading up the ethnic studies program. So English, and so this will be my last slide, then I'll turn it over to Professor Carney for a while. The English department, and what you could learn by taking some English courses here, you would hopefully learn how to interpret literature and other written work critically and imaginatively. As I said earlier, reading does not just mean looking at words on a screen or a page. It's how to interpret any text, and that could be a commercial on TV or a film or something like that, a piece of music. How to write prose that is clear, exact, and expressive in your essays. You'd be attentive to language and its ramifications. And we also have creative writing courses. And I might just briefly plug one of I wrote several creative writing courses that have become a small program here on screenwriting. We have poetry writing, screenwriting, and then fiction and creative nonfiction. So you might think coming to a community college, we would have only just a few classes, but we have many classes just in the English department, both in the critical thinking and writing side, and then the creative writing side as well. And I'll come back in a moment and talk about some more of this, but for now, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Carney to talk about history.
Good morning, all. I'm just turning off my video to save bandwidth because my connection is very laggy. So if I could just riff off something you said, Dr. Johnson, and that's about, I can actually relate to your experience telling my parents I was going to major in history, and I'm asking, well, so what are you going to do with that? And I'm sure maybe many of you have the same experience, that if you express an interest in doing something creative, people respond by saying, well, what are you going to do with that? I can tell you, I began as a STEM major, but I was more passionate about the humanities courses I was taking. I just was more interested in them. So that's one thing I think I would emphasize to all of you is follow your passion. And you'll find that your passion actually usually takes you someplace where you're happier rather than doing something because it's expected of you. So that's my piece of advice before I go forward here. Victoria, I'll answer your question very quickly. Yes, that's very possible. So you could take a Spanish class, depending on what level you're entering in. If you want to take a beginner class, you could take a beginner class. If you want to take a more advanced Spanish class, we offer them at IVC, so you could take that. You could also take a beginner ASL class or a more advanced ASL class. depending on what sort of background knowledge and what level you're comfortable with. By all means, you could take that. Okay, so let me begin by saying, yes, I am a professor of history at IVC. I was a history major in college, obviously, and I went on to become a professor, even though that was not my original intent. At IVC, we offer what are called general survey classes. These are sort of the larger, more sort of catch-all classes where we talk about sort of a lot of stuff. We don't actually offer very focused, specific classes when it comes to history, and in a lot of other subjects as well too. You'll take these more focused classes if you wish at a four-year school. But at IVC, we offer survey classes in American history, European history, and world history. I teach classes in world history and European history. Oh, and I also dabble a little bit in American history. You'll find that you will often have the option of taking these classes as a fulfillment of your general education requirement, but I would consider, well, I would actually ask you to consider, if they interest you, if this area interests you, in majoring in history. So at IVC, we actually teach history that emphasizes non-Western subjects that, you know, obviously in high school, you get a lot of sort of American and Western history or history told from the Western perspective. At IVC, we actually try to emphasize other parts of the world. And really, what interested me about history, if I can bring it back to me again, me. Really what intrigues me about history is it answers the big question, who are we really as a species or as a people, and how did we get here? But furthermore, it also answers sort of that on a more personal level. That history, what intrigues me about history is, yes, it answers this larger question of who we are collectively, but also it answers the question of who you are as a person, because all of us in this room are products of history. The reason you are sitting here listening to me yammer on is really a series of events that occurred before you were born, that led, you know, you as a person to be here now. And in that sense, and this is another deep thought, really, we're all products of history, right? On a deeply personal level. I'll answer more questions about that if you wish. But next slide, please, Dr. Johnson. Next, so this is actually relating back to your question, Victoria, of what kind of classes you can take. Obviously, if you're interested in language classes, you can take language classes, but I would encourage you to think about other things, too. History classes, but also philosophy classes. So speaking of deep, big questions, well, this is what philosophy is all about. At IVC, we have classes that deal with, of course, sort of the big question, like what's it all about? Which is, of course, sort of the historically speaking, been the major focus of philosophy. But we also have philosophy classes that deal with just logic, or the process of thinking logically. And you know what? Not all people are born with that skill. That's something that, you know, one can learn. There are also classes that deal with ethics, which are very relevant in today's world. So I would say, you know, this commonly held belief today that philosophy is somehow redundant. I would say, on the contrary, philosophy is even more relevant and becoming more relevant in our own world right now. And I think we'll find, or you'll find, that actually there'll be a more of a stress on teaching philosophy and teaching people how to think logically and ethically. Because you know what? A lot of people think, oh yeah, I'll pick up these, I'll pick this up through osmosis, or that this will come to me. Well, not necessarily. I think these are subjects that really demand that some sort of focus. Okay, next slide, please. At IVC, for the past, I think, 10 years, we've offered classes in gender studies. And these classes examine the intersection, or if you prefer, the interaction between gender, race, sexuality, ethnicity, nationality, class, or any other type of inequality, or any type of marginalized identity. These classes examine how the above, gender, race, sexuality, ethnicity, are actually social constructions. And in that way, they pick apart assumptions that we're kind of immersed in. That they closely examine how identity itself is really a product of society and our culture, and our notions of identity have changed, well, radically over time. I will tell you that, quite frankly, I really think these are great classes. We offer two of them, Gender Studies 10 and Gender Studies 20. They're taught by great professors, Professors Adams and Poster. Professor Adams teaches the Introduction to Gender Studies 10, and Professor Poster teaches Gender Studies 20, which really deals with constructions of gender in the media and popular culture, which is a really fun class to take, but it's also a really informative class to take. Please ask us any questions about this at the end of the presentation, but I'll go on to the next slide, please. As Professor Johnson said, we offer, I think now, 4 ethnic studies classes at IVC. These are relatively new classes, and they deal with something that is personally very relevant to me, and that is constructions of ethnic identity, constructions of race. Here you see two classes: the Introduction to Ethnic Studies 10, and Ethnic Studies 20. And if I can plug Ethnic Studies 20, because I teach it, Ethnic Studies 20 deals with the critical study of Asian American identity, but also Asian American history. And what I love about this class as a historian is that Ethnic Studies 20 really deals with how Asian Americans have contributed to the history of the United States. I see my connection's getting laggy, so if I lag out, please forgive me. But it also deals with the historical experience of Asian Americans in the United States. We also have 2 other new classes in Ethnic Studies 30, Chicanic, Chicanic Studies. It's being taught by a new professor at IVC. She's great. And in the spring, I believe we're offering Ethnic Studies 40, which is African American Studies. Next slide, please. We also offer general classes in the humanities, and if I can, Professor Johnson has already given you a brief overview of what the humanities are, but I'll just add to his definition by saying the humanities actually have a history, or I should say, the study of the humanities have a history going back to the Renaissance, right? When people actually, Renaissance thinkers, really argued that human activity, things like literature, philosophy, history, these were things that were worth studying, among other things, that actually the study of human beings was of inherent value. So these humanities classes are general classes that we offer at IVC, and they really cover, well, the gamut of the humanities. They cover literature, history, philosophy. They're sort of like sampler classes where if you take a humanities class, you will study a variety of topics under the wider umbrella of the humanities. I'll plug a class here. I do not teach this. This class is taught by Professor Felder, but Humanities 10, Introduction to Cultural Studies, is a really interesting, but furthermore fun class. I don't want to say fun class because that implies it's somehow easy. It's fun because it is interesting. Humanities 10 actually deals with popular culture and looking at popular culture through the lens of the humanities, right? By looking at popular culture through the lens of history, but also looking at it as literature and looking at it philosophically. So I would encourage you to actually, if you're looking for shopping around for classes, consider Humanities 10, which is being offered in the spring of 2021. This is an old slide, so it is being offered in 2022. So consider that. Next slide, please. Speaking of fun and interesting, we also offer classes in film and digital media. This is a new interdisciplinary degree, or relatively new. I mean, it debuted in 2019, which is what, I'm losing track of time, three years ago? So it's 2, thank you. So it's relatively new to us. This is a great class or a great program, particularly if you're interested in film and media, because it really brings together looking at media critically through the lens of as literature. It looks at it historically, philosophically, and so it really brings together the study of the humanities as applied to modern film. These classes also stress hands-on filmmaking as well too. So if you're interested in filmmaking at all, I would actually encourage you to consider some classes in this program beyond just majoring in it. You could actually just take classes in it to see, out of interest. Next slide, please. So this is the breakdown of the new, the now 2 years old film and digital media degree. Next slide. So please, if you have any questions about particular classes at the end of the presentation, please ask us. But I will go on to here by returning to this theme of the value of the humanities and how the humanities are not always, well, shall we say, valued in in modern society. That people once again ask, well, what are you going to do with that major? And there's been a stress over the last 20 years towards STEM, and I'm sure most of you know what STEM stands for. It's actually an acronym for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. In other words, a stress on math and hard science. So I'm sure a lot of you are getting a push. I know I did, towards majoring in these sorts of classes because there's the perception that you'll be able to get a job in them. But I actually want to suggest that recently there's more of a reconsideration of the value of the humanities, and not to devalue STEM. On the contrary, to actually bring these things together. And Professor johnson showed you those quotes from industry leaders that actually were saying, look, people that are majoring in the humanities have skills that will be valuable in the future. Well, not just in the future, they're valuable now. And so we would like to stress STEAM over STEM. That is science, technology, engineering, the arts, in other words, the humanities, and mathematics. And I will just, if you could go to the next slide, please, Professor Johnson. I'm going to turn it back over to Professor Johnson, but I'll leave you with an anecdote. And that is this. Maybe some of you, and I got this a little bit when I was, in your position going off to college. There was a push by my family to go into medicine. And what is interesting about that is that even if you're, I'm not saying don't go off and be a doctor. On the contrary, I'm saying that there's the misconception that in order to go off and do something like go to medical school, you have to major in biology or chemistry or biochem and to major in that. Actually, that is not true. And I want to leave you with this anecdote that actually I know a couple of doctors, MDs, that majored in the humanities. Actually, I know one doctor that majored in English literature. She was an English lit major, and another doctor, he was originally a history major. And that did not hold them back from becoming MDs or for entering into medical school, because I'll tell you a little secret. Medical school application boards don't look to see if you are a science major. They look to see if you did well in your classes, whatever classes those were, whether they be history classes, English lit classes, gender studies classes. They want to see that you succeeded in these classes. That's what they're looking for. They're also looking for something else. They're looking for a wide variety of applicants, not just people that majored in STEM. So that is based on the belief or the fact that humanities classes do offer valuable practical skills. Skills that will be useful in medical school, skills that employers need and want. These include the ability to do research, to look up facts and data, to evaluate those facts and data, and then to write about and analyze those facts and data. and really what the humanities gives you. All these classes that we've mentioned is really the ability to think critically, to be aware of other cultures, and furthermore, be aware of what it means to be human. In other words, to be aware of the human condition. So I'd just like to turn this back over to Professor Johnson by saying, if you ever get pushback from why are you taking these classes, or why do you want to major in this? Well, first of all, you should be following your interest and passion. That's my big point. But also, these classes are of inherent value, that they give you something that you will use either in whatever career path you choose. They will give you skills that will be valuable. So I'll turn this back over to Professor Johnson. And please, if you have any questions afterwards, please ask.
Thank you, Professor Carney. Let me go to the next slide here. So, Victoria, you asked a question earlier, and I hope we're answering it along the way. And here is the slide that really answers it. IVC Humanities courses. So all IVC students working toward an associate's degree and or a plan to transfer to Cal State, any Cal State, it's required that you pass Writing 1, which is a class I teach on critical thinking, reading, and writing. That's the English 101. We call it Writing 1 here, but it's the class that everyone in college takes. One of the required classes kind of across the country. And then students planning to transfer to a UC must also, they have to take Writing 1 and Writing 2. The difference between those two classes, I'll be brief, is that Writing 1, there are texts that everybody in the class reads and then writes essays on. There is usually one essay that involves some library type research. Whereas in Writing 2, that most of the semester is devoted to a long research project that becomes a long research paper that is developed semi-independently, in consultation with the instructor. There's nothing stopping you from taking Writing 2 as an elective if you are planning to transfer somewhere other than a UC. Some private universities also require a Writing 2 as well, but the UC, UCLA, UC Berkeley, UCSD, these schools, you are required to take Writing 2. Just one second. I see a comment from Victoria. Right. Okay, thank you. Then some options for electives. We've got art, Chinese, dance, literature, creative writing, film studies, French, gender studies, history, Japanese. I mean, look at all these: journalism, music, philosophy, photography, reading, religious studies, sign language, Spanish, theater. One of the big things we want to share with you is we are making a pretty hard push here that we want you to be part of the humanities. I mean, Professor Carney and I have sort of staked our lives on the idea that this is valuable. And we want you to find value in it as well. And so you have to take Writing 1. Some of you will have to take Writing 2 if you're going to go to a UC or one of the other universities that requires it. However, there are so many other ways to be involved with this. And for some of you, that might mean taking ASL or French or philosophy or history. For some of you, it might mean taking some courses and being involved in some clubs, and we'll talk about that as well. Or being part of the theater department and being part of a play, an actor or a lighting director or something like that. So find a way that this makes sense for you with your interests, as Professor Carney said. Follow your interests. You could be a physics major who also performs in the theater. The idea here is there's so much made about diversity for very good reasons, but part of diversity is diversity of interest as well. And I have diverse interests. I'm interested in, of course, in literature and the humanities, but I also am very interested in science. I wrote my doctoral dissertation on science in the humanities. And so having this diversity of interest makes you, like, to put it sort of on a careerist line, it will make you more interesting to employers because you'll have more you can bring to the table. But as a professor friend of mine once said, it'll make your conversations more interesting. It'll just make your life more fun. As corny as that sounds, it's true. By the way, Professor Carney, anything to add there, just since this is a number of classes? I know you touched on so much of this, but anything you'd like to add before I go on?
I would just add options for electives. Ethnic studies should be added in there.
Ethnic studies. Okay.
And probably reading should be taken out because,
okay.
Yeah, but you know, that's just, you know.
No, thank you. Yeah, ethnic studies, certainly consider those courses later this year or next year. Okay. The IVC Honors Program is housed within our School of Humanities. Of course, you don't have to be a humanities major to be part of the honors program, but it's in our building, and the previous director and the current director of the honors program are both in the English department in the School of Humanities. I'm not going to read this whole slide to you, and this is being recorded. So if you wanted to come back and look at this specific slide to see the requirements for eligibility in the honors program, you certainly could. At the bottom of the screen here is the honors program email address, honorsprogram@ivc.edu. And here is a list of honors program courses that are in the humanities department, or rather school. Of course, there are honors courses across the campus in other disciplines as well. But for instance, if because you have to take writing 1, if you wanted to take it as an honors course, you could. Same with History 1, History 51. Those are both offered as honors. Humanities 1, 71, and 72 are all offered as honors courses, as is Writing 2, that research writing course. And here, the honors program director, Emily Liu, has asked that we show this brief video. I've tried to share it for the sound, so Professor Carney, if the sound doesn't come up, could you maybe let me know? Thank you.
Hey, my name is Annabelle, and I'm a part of the honors program at Irvine Valley College.
The Irvine Valley College honors...
Hold on just a moment. Professor Carney, did you say you can hear this?
No, we can hear it now. Sorry.
You can? Okay. All right. Thank you.
This program is designed to support and challenge academically talented and highly motivated students. And these are some of the benefits. Smaller class sizes with enriched content and deeper engagement.
So you get to participate more in class and you have much better group discussions, and also you get a lot of one-on-one time with your professor.
Higher rates of transfer to UCLA, UC Irvine, and other selective institutions.
Prior to us being online, you could actually see the schools the students had gotten into on the wall in the Honors Lounge, which was intimidating but also inspirational.
Through the UCLA Transfer Alliance program, honors students receive priority consideration for admission and scholarship opportunities.
In particular, the UCLA TAP, the Guided Transfer Program, helps a lot of the honors program students get into UCLA every year. And I plan on completing and using that program in my fall application this year.
Dedicated honors counselors to help students set goals and prepare for a smooth transition to a 4-year institution.
When I was lost in the beginning, I made my first appointment. She got me set on my path with what classes I need to take, when I needed to take them, and it really clears up any confusion you may have.
Priority registration for the more than 45 honors courses offered in a variety of disciplines.
Classes at IVC do fill up really fast, so that's been a really positive benefit of this.
Mentorship for students engaging in academic research and presenting their work at research conferences.
I think people really underestimate how challenging it is to go from point A, I have an idea, to point B, possibly published research. There's a lot of really tough work in between there. And I think the series of workshops does a good job of guiding you at every step of where you need to go if you're interested in that process.
Recognition on your IVC academic transcript and at the commencement ceremony. To complete the honors program, students must complete a minimum of 5 honors courses taken for a letter grade, maintain a 3.25 GPA in their honors courses and UC transferable coursework, For UCLA TAP consideration, students must attain a 3.5 overall GPA and submit a learning portfolio. The honors program accepts applications year-round, although deadlines do apply for priority registration privileges. To apply to the honors program, please visit academics.ivc.edu/honors.
Okay, thanks for sitting through that. I mean, the benefits of potentially being part of the honors program are huge. And I won't go through them all again because the video just did, but I strongly encourage you, if you have any interest in this, to pursue it by speaking to the honors director, Professor Liu, who again is part of our School of Humanities. Okay, so because of the pandemic, a number of these clubs have merged or gone defunct, and it's not totally clear to Professor Carney and I exactly which of the humanities clubs will be active this fall. So we've listed here the clubs that were active last year, or in the last few years, I should say, just to give you a sense of another way to participate in the humanities here at IVC. If you're interested, and I strongly encourage you to be interested in clubs of any kind, there's also clubs in other disciplines as well. Check out, there will be an email from the college that comes out in a week or two. Check out the IVC Club Fair Day. This year, surely it will be held online. Often it's in person, it's in the quad, and there are tents is the wrong word, but those booths, and you can go by and meet the officers and current members and ask questions and sign up and so on. But there'll be a virtual one presumably this year. But just to give you a sense, these are some of the clubs that have existed in the past, and these are really student-driven. They all have a faculty advisor, but basically the students come up with plans and activities, and they do really fun things. Professor Carney and I have both hosted these clubs, or advised clubs on this list, and I have really enjoyed it, and the students are super nice, super fun, and people have a great time pursuing their interests. So regardless of whether you're interested in the humanities clubs that are listed here or not, there are going to be some new ones and some merged ones this year. So please do check out Club Fair Day. Another way to get involved is with the EAR. Believe it or not, we actually have a literary journal that is published and then sent out worldwide here at IVC. The journal publishes poetry, fiction, and visual art. That can mean painting, and then that's reproduced on the pages, or I believe last year for the first time, maybe it was last year, the year before, they published graphic novel comic art as well. And it's about half, my understanding is half of it comes from the campus community and half is from national and international writers and artists. So you can participate in this by being one of the writers and or artists, or you could be on the editorial board. So if you're interested in that, please check out this website, the-ear.org. Please have a look there. This is a massive list, and definitely not a comprehensive list, of various careers that a humanities degree can lead to. I won't go through all of these, but the major point here is it's not just, if you're an English major, it's not just writer or teacher. You can do any number of things, as Dr. Carney pointed out, including become a medical doctor, a lawyer. If you have these skills, when you have these skills of thinking critically, thinking creatively, doing things that artificial intelligence cannot do, at least not yet, and probably not for a while, you will be able to take those skills to any field and be useful. Okay, so we're near the end. If you have your questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself in a moment, but just the last few slides here. So really, why humanities? We kept this slide in. We had this before Mr. Bryant passed away, and we kept it because we felt it was very valuable. Kobe Bryant recalls Elon Musk telling him that anyone can boost their knowledge, but if you don't have the imagination to take it to another level, it doesn't mean anything. That idea of knowledge is quite important. Technical skill in any field is quite important. But if you don't have a creative mind, if you don't have a critically thinking mind, you're not going to be able to go to that next level, whether that's in your own creativity or in your, in a tax bracket, as it were. That you do need to have those skills that the humanities can provide, or you're going to be stuck. Liz Alexander, a futurist and co-founder of Leading Thought, has said, as machine learning, artificial intelligence, and other forms of workplace automation gain ground, technical competence alone doesn't cut it. To stay competitive, we need to get comfortable making difficult, complicated, higher order decisions more regularly. In other words, critical thinking will be crucial. And this is like the thing that we teach you to do in the humanities. One more, this was a slide that we added last year because I think oftentimes the corny sell point here is it will make your life more interesting. It'll make your conversation more interesting. But for those people who say, as many do, you will make less money as a humanities major. If you get a degree in filmmaking, what are the odds that you'll ever be able to do that for a career? That was what I heard. That was my first career, was in filmmaking. And it's simply not true. That there's data that demonstrates, let me read this to you. The director at the Harvard Kennedy School, David Deming, quotes a statistic that says by age 40, the average salary of all male college graduates today is $118,870, while social science and history majors come in at $131 and change. In other words, I realize for many of you in the room, 40 years old feels like really far away. But the point that he's making here is that right out of the gate, STEM majors tend to make more money than humanities majors. That's verifiable with data in the aggregate. However, on a longer scale, humanities majors actually end up making more money. So that's backed by this data, that it's not that you won't make more money. It might take longer. It might take you less time. But on the whole, humanities majors actually tend to make more money than the average salary. Tech skills do become obsolete quickly. Critical thinking skills are portable and durable. Again, that's not to put down STEM, but it's that if you are a computer programmer, you are always having to learn more knowledge. Whereas if you learn history with Professor Carney, yes, history is being made every moment that we're alive, but the facts about the French Revolution aren't exactly changing. That the knowledge base remains the same. And then your portable skills of critical and creative thinking, those remain the same, and you can take them anywhere. They're always going to be useful in any field.
Can I add something to that, Dr. Johnson?
Please.
Just to add on to something you said about humanities majors over longer term making more. So the data actually says that engineers and people trained in that had more of a technical education, they tend to make more right out of college, but humanities majors eventually surpass them, right?
Yeah.
Because exactly as Dr. Johnson said, tech skills become obsolete, right? And require retraining. Humanities majors, on the other hand, I guess you could say the skills that you're going to learn will not become obsolete, right? Skills like reading, doing research, analyzing facts and data, and then writing. These are all skills that are not going to, be go out of fashion or become obsolete because of new technology. They're timeless.
Right. That's it. Let me just pull up this last slide here. So here are our contact details. If you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. I know we're right up against our time, and we've been asked to put this link in the chat. So if you're wondering where to go next, that's the link. I think Dr. Carney, I speak for you as well. I'm very happy to hang out for a few minutes if people have questions. If you need to get to your next session, that's perfectly fine. If you want to take down our email addresses and write to us, that's perfectly fine. But thank you very much for coming and for letting us share this information with you. And as I said, we'll hang out for questions if you wish, but we wish you a very successful school year, and welcome to Irvine Valley College.
Yes, thanks, Saul, and good luck in the new school year.
Yeah. Rahul has got a question. Let's see. How does one organize a good balance between general education and major specific classes? What a lovely question, Rahul. So I'll start by saying the counseling department will help with that. They're trained in helping you organize your schedule and your map, my academic plan, there it is, so that you take classes, like don't take every hard class the same semester. But I don't know, Professor Carney, what do you think about that?
I can give another anecdote, and it's from my own personal experience. Really, the purpose of general education is well, to give you a more rounded sort of educational experience, right? I can tell you that actually it was thanks to my GE classes that I discovered what really interested me. And that was history and literature. I was taking a bunch of STEM classes that frankly, they were difficult, but I just wasn't passionate about them. So I would say this, my advice is this, the counselors at IVC will make sure that you have a balanced schedule. I mean, as Professor Johnson said, that you're not taking all your hard classes in one single semester. But my advice is this, general education has a real purpose, and furthermore, it has a real value, and don't discount it. A lot of people just say, oh, I have to take general education classes because it's just a hoop I have to jump through. I would say try to get the most out of general education by taking classes that interest you. So that being said, shop around. That's what I did. That's what Professor Johnson did. That's true. It's like a sample platter, right? So, I would encourage you to look at a variety of things, ask around. And that's also why, we're here for you as well, too. So please take down our email addresses and write to us if you have any specific questions about, well, what kind of GE classes do I want to take? But, I would be, once again, counselors will help you out with this, but, just be careful you're not taking a big block of really demanding classes in one semester. That very rarely is pleasant. And I think you're better actually, even if it takes you another semester, you're better off spacing things out. I'm not sure if that answers your question. So.
I see some of other folks stayed in the room. If anyone else has a question or a comment, feel free to unmute yourself or put a note in the chat. We'll be happy to answer your questions. Thanks, Rahul.
Well, while we're waiting around here, and please feel free to ask those of you still in the room. I want to share some more anecdotes. So, and with Professor Johnson. Oh no.
That did it.
Yeah, that drove them out of the room.
Wow.
No, I was going to say that actually, I remember very clearly the lit classes I took as a GE requirement, and I was sharing that the American lit class that I took, and I shared that anecdote with you. That moment of like, oh wow, this is so cool.
Yeah. I know. I had that feeling too. Um, I took, it's funny, I took an American Lit class, and that was, did I say this the other day to you? That because I was a business economics major because that's what my father told me to do. And I took an American Lit class and I thought, oh, this is really great. And I was aiming to be a filmmaker. And I thought, I put two and two together and thought, hey, wait a minute, telling stories, books and movies aren't that dissimilar. And it did something to me when I took that American Lit class. That's funny that you had that. We both had that. Well, that went pretty well. Have you gone too? I can't hear you if you're still there.
Oh, I'm still here, but I'm laggy.
Okay. I thought you had left and I was
No,
just here
no,
alone.
no, I'm your story.
Yeah, that was anyway. The other thing I would have said, I doubt you will ever watch.
Well, I guess we can stop recording.
Yeah. I was gonna say one more thing, just in answer to Rahul's question. I know he's not here and there's probably no way he's gonna watch this replay, but I learned a lot about what classes to take by talking to other students. And
Yeah.
they would say, take this,
Yes.
take this professor, take this class, don't take this one the same semester as that one. I mean, that's a pretty obvious piece of advice, but I wish he were still here. I would have said that to him.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, here, I'll stop this recording.
I don't know if I'm laggy, but absolutely, I have that experience too. And of course, we didn't have resources like Rate My Professor.
That's true.
Right? I remember you had to talk to people.
Right. It was all sort of like a whisper campaign. There was, yeah, that's true.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
I forgot about Rate My Professor. Well, on that note, here, I'll hit stop recording here. Are you sure you want to stop?